I'm going to read you a passage from Imam Ibn al-Qayyim's book Al-Fawaid about benefits, where he talks about and I don't know what to call it, the gasp, right? Gasp when you're like, right? He talks about the gasps that occur when a person hears the Quran. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is to show you how far, not to show you, but to remind myself how far I am from these righteous people. And perhaps you've experienced all of these gasps, and perhaps you experience these regularly, but it's not something that I've experienced like this. It shows me how far I am from where I need to be, but it just is amazing, like how deep it goes with the Quran, you know? So he said, الشهقة التي تعرض عند سماع القرآن أو غيره لها أسباب. He said the gasp that occurs when you hear the Quran or other than it, maybe like hadith or whatnot, it has causes. He said الشهقة التي تعرض عند سماع القرآن أو غيره لها أسباب. He said the shahqa, the gasp that occurs when you hear the Quran or other than the Quran, like the hadith, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that gasp happens when you hear it due to some reasons. There's some things that cause such a gasp. And from the reasons that cause the gasp, one of them is أن يلوح له عند سماع درجة ليست له فيرتاح إليها فتحدث له الشهقة فهذه شهقة شرب. He said the first is that when you're listening in the Quran about a level that Allah is describing that you haven't reached in terms of righteousness and piety. فيرتاح إليها. And when you hear it, you're like, I want to be like that. And you know when you see someone, you're like, bro, I wish I had that. I would love that. You're like, I just want to get to that level. Because هذه شهقة شوق. This is the gasp of excitement. The second is أن يلوح له ذنب ارتكب فيشهق خوفا وحزنا على نفسه وهذه شهقة خشية. He said the second type is when you remember as you're reading the Quran a sin that you've done. Maybe the ayah is talking about a sin. So you gasp out of fear and sadness over yourself. And this is the gasp of fear. وثالثها أن يلوح لها نقص فيه لا يقدر على دفعه عنه فيحدث له ذلك حزنا فيشهق شهقته حزن. The third is as you're listening to the Quran, it occurs to you there is a deficiency that you have that you just can't remove from yourself. And then you talk to yourself and you remind yourself due to sadness, you just can't remove this. You need Allah's help. So فيشهق شهقة حزن. So you gasp a gasp of sadness. The fourth one is أن يلوح له كمال محبوبه. As you listen to the Quran, it occurs to you the perfection of Allah, the one that you love. ويرى الطريق إليه مسدودة عنه فيحدث ذلك شهقة أسف وحزن. And you realize that the path to Allah, you've been closed from it. You're thinking as you're reading the Quran, the greatness of Allah. Who's this king? Who's this king? تبارك الذي بيده الملك وعلى كل شيء قدير. You're hearing this ayat where Allah is describing himself and you're like, whoa, how perfect is he? And then you're like, but I'm not on the path to him. I'm on a different path. Because this is a gasp of regret and sadness. وخامس أن يكون قد توارى عنه محبوبه واشتغل بغيره فذكره السماع محبوبه فلاح له جماله ورأى الباب مفتوحا والطريق ظاهرة فشهق فرحا وسرورا بما لاح له. He goes, the fifth one is that you're busy being in love with someone else other than Allah. And then as you listen to the Quran reminds you of your beloved Allah. So you gasp, realizing that, okay, this is the path that's blocked me from Allah, but that's the path that's open. So you gasp out of excitement. Okay, I can go to my Lord, I can go to my beloved. So what do? You gasp out of happiness. You gasp out of happiness. بكل حال فسبب الشهقة قوة الوارد والضعف المحل عن الاحتمال، والقوة أن يعمل ذلك الوارد عمله داخلا ولا يظهر عليه، وذلك أقوى له وأدوم، فإنه إذا أظهره ضعف أثره وأوشك انقطاعه. And this was a beautiful benefit that he mentioned here. He said, if you don't make this gasp apparent, and you just internalize it, the feeling of the gasp without actually gasping out loud, he said the effect is stronger. Because when you vocalize certain things, the effect of it doesn't last on the heart. And well, it's very true. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this very well. But you know, sometimes people in Salah, like, they cry because the ayah hits them. And after the Salah finishes, they're laughing and joking. But then there's those that, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba would hear his chest. His chest was like something that was boiling. You know, like the sound that something makes on the stove when it's boiling. Because the Prophet ﷺ was trying to hold in his tears, he wouldn't bring it out. So you know, when you deal with that feeling inside and you try your best to keep it in, the more you hold it in, the more it affects within. But when you bring it out, I'm not saying it's wrong to cry. When you bring it out, it's like, also it does, like, the more you internalize that feeling internally, the more it impacts you internally. But then when you let it out, then you let it out. It doesn't settle in the heart the way that it should. And this will hopefully make you understand the example a little bit better if you're not getting it. You know, when someone's sad and they cry, people say, let it out, it's okay, let it out, let it out. Why? Because when you cry, you're letting out that feeling inside, right, of sadness and regret. But if the sadness and regret is something that's going to help you get closer to Allah, then don't let it out, keep it in. If you're feeling sad with regards to, bro, I'm on a wrong path, and you gasp because of that, and you feel that internally, but keep that. You don't want it out. You want that to boil and bubble inside of you until it overflows with repentance and the action that you need to take to move in the right direction. He says, هذا الشهقة من الصادق. This is the gasp that comes from a truthful person. فإن الشاهق إما صادق وإما سارق وإما منافق. Because the person who gasps is either a liar, or he's truthful, or he's a thief. Right? He's either stealing from himself, the feeling of internally being impacted, so he's a thief now by letting it out, or he's a hypocrite, letting it out, crying, you know, letting people see, or he's truthful. And that's not for us to judge anyone that lets out internally, because some people, like, it overcomes you, like you can't control yourself. That's between them and Allah. But yeah, man, I just amazed at how this man, and Allah Ta'ala, like, one thing you'll notice about Imam Ibn Qayyim, and I really hope you get to the stage where you can, you know, study his works, is that he's talking by himself. And I spoke to my sheikh about this, and one of my other mashayikh said this to me as well. He's talking by himself, but he's not saying this is me. He's not saying, oh, I have 5 types of gasps when I read the Quran. No. He's describing what he found himself. Like, there's another chapter where he's saying some stuff. Maybe I'll read it to you one day, inshallah. And I remember I thought, I said, Sheikh, والله هو يتحدث عن نفسه. He's talking about himself. Sheikh said, wallahi. So this is the man who's speaking from what he found inside himself. Because as I was reading it, I was like, bro, this is deep, man. May Allah Azza wa Jalla allow us to learn from our scholars, our ulama, and study these works and become connected to him and his speech. If this benefited you, there's another video I made where I was reading a page from the same book